I'm Diane Barrett. This is 10/4/2021. Linda Powell is being interviewed for the BE collection. And I'd like to start by asking you your career, your occupation.
Currently, I am a physical education teacher for an elementary school, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Mm-hmm. And prior to that?
Prior to that, because this is very new. Prior to that, I was a sergeant in the California Highway Patrol for 21 and a half years.
Okay.
Well, I was an officer and then a sergeant.
Do you have to have, what kind of preparation do you have for that? Education?
Education-wise, all you really need is a high school diploma. But if you want to promote, I think it really helps to have a degree beyond just a high school diploma, especially when you're promoting and you're going to be supervising people. I think when you have a more well-rounded view of the world and you have more of an insight into people, I think it helps to have an advanced degree.
I would agree with that just generally too, huh?
Yeah.
And do you hold an advanced degree?
Yeah, well, I hold a Bachelor of Science. Good. And it's in physical education and health, but I had a lot of education classes. I had a lot of educational psychology classes and a lot of psychology classes in that major, and that I think has helped me more than anything learn how to deal with people and understand human nature. My teaching classes helped me. Dealing with junior high school kids is a lot like dealing with the general public.
I would agree with that. We have a child. She's in her 20s now, but we've met that group.
Yeah.
I would never be a teacher. Yes, I'm always impressed with the teachers. I wouldn't be in the highway patrol either. What brought you to that career?
I never thought I could be a police officer, and I had absolutely no contact with police officers. I didn't have any growing up history with police officers or any personal friends or any family friends. I didn't even think that it was a career that I was good enough to do, because I always held police officers on this crazy high pedestal. And I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I became a teacher, and I was working not only my teaching job, but I was umpiring softball on the weekends and weeknights. I was coaching pretty much every sports season, every sport after school. And I was getting home at about 11 o'clock at night and then turning around and going back and teaching just to make ends meet, just to make a living and be able to pay my rent. And so I think that when the opportunity came up, I had an ex that was in the process for the highway patrol, and so I thought about, well, maybe I'll be a reserve police officer. And so I was going through the reserve testing process for the city of Glendale in Southern California, and my ex said to me, she said, if you're going to be in law enforcement, why don't you go for the best law enforcement agency in the world? And of course, when you're in when you're in any law enforcement agency, that's how they brainwash you, I guess. But
they're the best, right? They're brand.
Yeah. So I thought, well, the idea of making money enough to pay my bills and doing something I thought that would be different every day and exciting. So I was ready to give up teaching and go into something different. So that's why I switched.
And what kind of responsibilities did you have when you moved into something different, into the police?
Well, police work is one of those professions that includes a lot of personal and professional responsibility and liability. And just as teaching is, the subject matter that I taught had, high potential for things to go wrong because it was physical education, and whether it's teaching floor hockey and having a kid high stick and get somebody in the eyeball, or to have somebody get hurt because your supervision is negligent on the field or something like that. There's a high amount of liability that can happen. Or if you don't understand how to take care of a kid that has asthma and they have an asthma attack out on the field, your personal liability is very high, or professional liability. So it's the same thing in police work, because you're given all these tools and you're given all this power and responsibility, and you have to know how to use it, and you have to know the legal grounds in which you can use it. And you have to understand that there are grave consequences if you react improperly, or if you use force improperly. So they're extremely similar in that nature.
So were you ever scared being a police officer?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of times I was scared. There's a lot of times when there was a lot of people that were a lot bigger than I was, and I was trying to get them to do. I needed them to do something that I knew that they wouldn't just willingly go along with. And I'm 5'7". I'm
good.
Average build, but I'm not a brute. But I'm not weak by any stretch. But when we're talking about a 6'4" guy that is 200 pounds of pure muscle, getting somebody like that to do what I need them to do isn't there. There's no question that I can't use force. I can't use brute force to get somebody to go along with that. So as a female, we, and not just me, but other females in law enforcement, we develop our skill with, our verbal skills and our ability to talk somebody. We call it talk somebody into handcuffs, or get them to go along with it just by being respectful and nice, even under the circumstances. So. Yeah, so there's plenty of times I was scared, but I just used different tools.
Did you work with a woman, or would you always work with a guy?
Just depended on the quarter. We changed graveyard partners, sometimes on a quarterly basis, sometimes on just whenever we felt like we needed a change. We might go to a different shift and work by ourselves. Mm-hmm. In the highway patrol, we worked day shift and afternoon shift by ourselves, but on graveyard shift, we paired up. So sometimes I worked with another female, and I was probably more successful working with another female just because our tactics were so similar, and we resorted to using our brains and using psychology to get what we needed done, rather than, commanding force.
What made you leave?
Well, I left the highway patrol because I retired. I was old enough to retire, and I had put in.
Look old enough.
Yeah, well, my birthday was Friday. This past Thursday, I turned 54. So
happy birthday.
I retired at age 51 and a half from the highway patrol.
That's the usual retirement age.
You can I was grandfathered in under the tier that I was grandfathered in. You could retire at age 50, and it's a little bit different for the new guys now. But I could retire at 50, so I went until 51 and a half, and I had 21 and a half years.
You were ready.
I was ready. I think I was just needed. Now I'm back to teaching. So I was a teacher before.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So good. So where were you born?
I was born on the way to Bozeman, Montana.
Were you in Montana?
Yeah, I was in Montana. My dad was a rancher, and my mom was a ranch wife, and my dad was trying to finish up morning chores with the cows, and my mom needed to go to the hospital, and the hospital was 60 miles away from the ranch. And so we headed off, and my mom couldn't make it. And so she told my dad that he needed to pull over.
Right.
And so he did in Three Forks, Montana. And I was born in a doctor's office on Main Street in Three Forks, Montana.
Good. So you were in good health when you were born.
Yeah, the ambulance came and took my mom and I to Bozeman to the hospital. So, but I was perfectly fine.
Good. Good. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters and a brother.
Mm-hmm.
My older sister is a missionary in Paraguay, South America, with her husband. My younger sister and her husband live in Billings, Montana, and my younger brother lives near Spokane.
So most of your growing up life was in Montana?
No, not at all.
Really?
Not at all. When I was a little kid, when I was an infant, my dad and mom decided to become evangelical missionaries, and in doing so, we moved to Missouri, and they helped build a language institute for the mission board that they were with. And then we ended up moving to Florida and going through missionary training in Florida. And then we moved to Paraguay, South America.
Wow.
And
how old were you then?
I was 3 when we moved to Paraguay. And we moved to the capital city, Asuncion. And my parents studied Spanish for a year, and then we moved out into the jungle with a tribe of Indians. And we lived in the jungle in northwest Paraguay called the Gran Chaco, and it's a low, dense, dry, brushy jungle with a lot of thorns, a lot of bugs, a lot of snakes, a lot of bad critters. And we moved out there with a tribe of Indians, or a tribe of indigenous people, back in about 1971. When we moved into the tribe. 1970, back in 1977, I think is when we left. And I was involved in basketball, and I played all the sports that I could possibly play. And so I really wanted to stay in the United States, but we ended up going back down to Paraguay in about 1980 or 81. And then I had an opportunity to play basketball on a team that was out in a Paraguayan city. There was an all-star team, and I played basketball there. And
do you go back to visit now?
No, I haven't been back at all. Going back to a group of missionaries, as an openly out gay person is not like the most comfortable thing to do. So
not too welcoming.
Yeah, it's not really a welcoming group.
Right.
I still have Paraguayan friends that I think down there that are way more welcoming than the missionaries would be.
Right.
So
that's something they can do if they maintain their religious premise. They're not going to welcome us. Right.
Yeah. And I have
aware of your sexuality, that you were lesbian. How old were you?
I was very young. From the time I can possibly remember having thoughts, I was conscious of an attraction to women.
Were you?
So
4?
3, 4 years old. Yeah. Very young.
Any particular woman?
Well, in 3rd grade, there was a camp counselor at family camp who I, obviously she was in her 20s and I was like 10.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But no, not that I can really think of, unless you count Amy Grant in there. I don't have there was no particular person, other missionary kids. I was a couple girls I had crushes on. But yeah, no particular person.
Are there any homosexuals in your family that you know about?
No.
Not yourself? No.
Yeah, just myself.
How did you meet Lisa?
We oddly enough, we met online, and I was living. We lived about 3.5 hours away. I was in a rural community in Susanville. She was down here in the Sacramento area, and we both ran. We both did a lot of races, and that kind of was just something in common. And I was coaching cross country, running at the time, and she was also running cross country on an adult team. Mm-hmm. And so we just had things in common, mostly through running.
Mm-hmm. And then when did you say, aha, let's do more with this?
We had talked for about a month or so, and I came down for a race because I was getting ready for the California International Marathon, and she was getting ready for it as well. And there was a warm-up race, a 20-mile race that we decided to sign up and run. And so, I came down and we had dinner together, and then the next day we met up again and ran the race, and we just kind of felt pretty natural, and we enjoyed each other's company, and so we spent quite a bit of time. And she came up and visited me several times up in Susanville, and I came down and met her family down here, and so in about a year's time, I ended up moving down. I ended up moving down to Sacramento a few months later, and we got a place, and I was working at the CHP Academy down here, and then I ended up moving back up to Susanville because my kids were up there, and I was having some issues with my ex, and wanted to kind of be able to navigate through all of that, and because it was a pretty tough time, and so she ended up moving up there with me.
Good.
So,
you have children?
I do. She does actually as well. Mm-hmm. Her son is 30 years old, and he lives in Wisconsin. And then my kids I have 3 kids with my ex. I have a 20-year-old, and I have 17-year-old twins, boy and a girl. So, and my 20-year-old is one of my sons.
So are they your biologic children?
No, they were my ex and I went through in vitro, and so we had these 3 kids through in vitro, and it was her egg, and she carried them. Mm-hmm. So, and they're all good kids.
Has there been a person in your life that's been a significant mentor? Or?
My mom is probably that person that if my mom and I were together, you would say, wow, you guys are just alike.
Really?
And to me, that's an exceptional compliment.
It is unusual.
Yeah. We sound alike. We kind of process things alike in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But then there's things that with my dad too, the really type A parts of my personality are definitely from my dad. So between my mom and my dad, I probably learned the most.
Did they accept your coming out?
Not at first. It was a difficult coming out. I was out at school. I was at Montana State University at the time. Anyway, got back somehow to my uncle, who ran the farm. And so at my grandmother's funeral, long story short, he basically cornered me. He wanted to give me a ride from the church to the cemetery. And so I accepted. And then he took the opportunity to have a captive audience and tell me that if I didn't stop being a homosexual, that he would pray that the closest thing to me would be taken away from me.
Really? What a guy.
Yeah, it was a very cruel thing to say to a young person, a college kid.
Any kid. Anybody.
Anybody. Mm-hmm. And oddly, when I did tell my mom that, my mom said, "You tell me if he ever says anything like that again." She was very upset about it. So yeah, it was a tough time, and that was 1988, 89.
Mhm.
And it was just not, you couldn't really be out. And even at a university or at a college, you had to be careful who you were out to. And I was working in the summertime at the university had a summer sports camp for kids, and I loved it. I was doing exactly what I wanted. I had teaching swimming to these little rugrats, and teaching them games and doing the sports camp thing all day on the summertime, and had just a great time. And then the next year, and I was doing really well. And then the next year, the sports camp director had found out that I was gay and didn't rehire me, and I was devastated because I was really good at it.
I'm sure.
And so,
did she tell you why she didn't hire you?
What's that?
Did she say why she didn't hire you?
Oh, well, he wouldn't give me a straight answer. And I just knew. I just knew what it was.
I wonder who spilled the beans.
I wasn't, it's not that I was closeted, but I also wasn't, this was 1989.
You weren't heterosexual.
Yeah, I wasn't.
That shows.
Out. Yeah. And
it's who we are.
Yeah.
Regarding sexuality, I recall other things, but not that. So.
Yeah, I did teach in my school that I taught at in Southern California was a Catholic school, and I was out. But I didn't talk about it at school.
Right.
And I remember when my ex and I were going through the in vitro process, and or we were trying to or going to go through the in vitro process. And I remember my principal saying to me that, making a comment to me about how that would be a really bad idea, doing that. And I think the implication was that I would be fired.
Really?
Yeah.
Who ended that relationship?
I did. Yeah, it was a unfortunate series of events. I think we were, my ex had kind of an addictive personality, or addiction problems, with just drinking problems. And then she got hurt on the job, and then started in with the pain medication, and then there was just an evolution of moods and mood swings, and I couldn't deal with it, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and I just pushed farther and farther and farther. Yeah. I just kind of retreated. Mm-hmm. And instead of, and I don't know that I could have fixed anything or not. Because she was also dealing with abandonment issues and other things that she hadn't taken care of. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it just pushed me very far out of the picture. And I just, we didn't have any intimacy. I didn't even like to be around her at all.
With addiction, you're not the primary relationship. Did you hear what I said? With addiction, you are not the primary relationship.
This is true.
That's really painful.
And we had kids, and I think I tried to do what I could to shelter the kids to some degree, but then I felt like I failed at that as well, because I left, and I ultimately cheated on her, and I left. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't know how to get out of the relationship. I wanted to for years. For years I wanted to get out of the relationship. I just didn't know how. And so I did the wrong thing to do the right thing, or to do what I needed to do. And and that came back to bite me as far as having it as close relationship with my kids at the time. I think I probably gave up, or I wasn't as engaged with the kids as I should have been or could have been.
You put yourself first for a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I should have been more protective of them than I wasn't.
So then did you move from her to Lisa? Was that?
No, I was by myself for a while. Not a long while. But several months. And then I probably should have been by myself a lot longer, but I don't know. And things work the way they work for a reason, I suppose. It just, Lisa came along, and we had a lot in common, and we hit it off, and it was fun, and we ended up deciding that we loved each other, and but Lisa came along quite a while, probably a good year after, or at least, probably a good year after my ex and I broke up.
So did you feel wanted by Lisa?
I don't know. I guess, I guess so. I mean, I don't know.
I asked you that because when you're in a relationship with, and I'm not faulting your ex-partner, with someone who is so focused on their addictions and their health and their whatever, there's no room for you. None. No matter what you say, what they say when you're leaving.
Yeah.
But if they're going through it, you're not wanted. They can't. They have no space for you.
Yeah. And she just had a really hard time.
My guess is Lisa wanted you. So if you knew that your life would be ending shortly, what would you like to be reminded and remembered for? Reminded about and remembered for?
I guess my life has always been about offering grace, receiving grace, and offering grace to people.
Yeah, that's a nice statement. I like that.
And that is my middle name, actually.
Is it? Ha!
It really is.
All right.
But, grace is something that you don't deserve, that you receive.
It's been a pleasure to meet you.
Very, very nice talking to you as well. I've enjoyed it very much.